everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Adorkable Rachel, and it's time once again for another episode of Rachel Reviews, so let's just hop into it. Sorry, by the way, if this week I sound a little nasally and weird because like I said, I've been kind of sick and I'm still getting over it, so I've been hearing it in my past videos where I'm all like, blah, in this area, so just FYI, that's why. Aside from my usual not sounding normalness. Anyway, on with the review. Like I said, right now I'm putting out a couple reviews of movies that have been out for a bit, and this is the next one, Finding Dory. There will be some spoilers here, keep in mind, so again, if you haven't seen the film, just click away and come back later. Finding Dory is a movie that I was crossing my fingers was gonna be good because, well, you know what? Finding Nemo is my favorite Pixar film. You can have your Toy Story and your Up and your Inside Out and whatever, those are good movies, but for me, it is Finding Nemo for the win. It had a great story, great humor, really wonderful and sympathetic characters. It just gets me right here. And when you hear that a sequel to one of your favorite movies ever is getting a follow-up, you are just praying to the movie gods that it will at least be a good follow-up. Is it something that they're just cashing in on like they did with Cars 2? Or will it actually feel like a worthy continuation? And most importantly, will it be any good? In the follow-up movie, Dory starts getting spotty memories of her parents, so remembering them, she decides one day to finally go out and look for them with the help of Marlin and Nemo, all the way across the ocean to San Francisco from Australia. Wow. Where was that adventure story? They make it to a marine life institute where all the exhibits are narrated by Sigourney Weaver. No reason, really. Just makes it funny. And from there, it's just one big heist/finding where you came from story where Dory's trying to get into the Marine Life Institute and figure out where her parents are, and she re-encounters a lot of characters and friends from her past, a lot of which she knew from when she was just a teeny little adorable fishling. There were a lot of fun new characters in this film. I loved Ed O'Neill playing Hank the octopus, Destiny the whale shark, and then Bailey the beluga. Those two were great and they played off each other really well. And then we also get cameos from some of the other characters like the stingray, and then not to spoil anything, but we also get the tank fish at one point in the film. There were also some moments in the film where you knew they were trying to recreate the spirit of the first film, but you are kind of aware that it's being pushed a little too much. For example, they had those seals in the movie that were just resting on a rock, and often they would do the whole off, 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 off kind of thing, which is obviously exactly like the seagulls that went mine, 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 mine. Yeah, seals, I feel like the fact that I was aware that that was a lot like the original film, that kind of made it not so funny. But for the most part, the humor was great. And there was also a lot of creativity put into this movie, especially when it's all about the characters trying to get into the institute and how they get from one place to another. What with the characters basically needing to be in water all the time, they had a lot of limitations, but they got insanely creative with that. I will admit, as an adult, there were some parts of the film where the suspension of disbelief was kind of broken a bit. For example, like when Bailey and Destiny had to jump over the tanks, I couldn't help but think, aren't those tanks meant to be made for animals to not escape out of? Like, why? Also, there's no way that certain characters could have survived in certain bodies of water because, you know, different temperatures, some fresh, some salty. Yeah, maybe that was reading a little too much into it. I know that the logic is supposed to be, it's a fish, they're in water. That's all you really need. So yeah, if you think too hard about it, it kind of gets to you, but at the same time, like in a kind of cartoony Disney sense, it's passable. I know that quite often making a supporting character from a first film the main character in the next film can kind of be risky and not always work, but you know, actually it really does play off well in this movie. And the reason for that is because, let's face it, Dory pretty much is the most memorable character from Finding Nemo. She's really funny and spontaneous, and Ellen DeGeneres just completely shines as this character. I love when characters like Marlin get really frustrated with her because of her short-term memory loss. We still feel really bad for her because we know it's not her fault and she's still trying to do good all the time. She just tries so hard to always be helpful and do the right thing, but she can't help it when things go wrong. It is very much her movie, and her disability just makes the whole entire story so strong. My absolute favorite part of the film is that while we're watching the story, we're basically discovering Dory's past with her. She starts off with no memory of her parents or where she came from, but then certain little things just start to jog her memory, and then as she goes on this journey to find out where she came from, and she like meets people and comes to different locations, and even though we've never seen these things before, it's like we're discovering them for the first time again with her. This was just a great example of seeing the story exactly through her eyes. We literally saw it as she saw it. I think it's important to note that this movie has two very interesting messages to it. I feel like the first one is kind of a throwaway, like the filmmakers weren't really sure for sure what kind of message they were trying to get across in this film, so they have this one delivered by the main character near the end of the film. Dory ends up giving this speech to Hank about how sometimes the unexpected things that happen in life are actually the best things that happen to you, and that plans don't always work out and it's okay to go with the flow. You just keep swimming, 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 am I right? I guess that kind of goes along with the fact that Dory has short-term memory loss and some of the best things that ever happened to her were the unexpected things in life. I get that message, I guess, but at the same time, I honestly don't feel like it was that necessary. Especially since when you think about it, she was unexpectedly taken away from her parents, and that led her to be separated from them for several years. I know I might be thinking too hard, but that just kind of seems to undermine the message a little bit. However, the message that really got me in this movie is the second one, about how important it is to take care of our loved ones even when they have crippling disabilities, and also that whether you have a disability or a mental issue or just something that holds you back in some way, it doesn't mean that you can't adapt regardless. Some of the best scenes in the movie are the ones from Dory's past where her parents are trying to help her adapt to her environment and to get along with all the other kids in her neighborhood. I mean, the other fish in the tank. You can just so see their struggle, but you can also see just how much they love her and how much they want to help her. And in the end, they do find a way to help her with the seashells. It's a little hard to explain, but I think it's a great reminder that just because you don't learn things the normal way, that doesn't mean that you're completely hopeless. For example, when I was growing up, it was really hard for me to retain information and learn about things when I had to read about them. I personally had a lot of trouble with reading something or reading a passage or a paragraph of information and then having to answer questions about it right afterwards. But my parents are awesome, and when they realized that I was actually a better visual learner, that suddenly made retaining information a lot easier for me. Now I love reading, but back when I was a little adorkable youngling, things were a little more difficult for me academically, which is of course why I ended up going to art school. Go figure. We are all capable of learning things in different ways. It just sometimes takes a little creativity in finding out what works best for you. And for me, that is the big lesson that I got from this movie. I don't know if that was intentional, but that's where it really got me right here. Cause you know, all that learning how to adapt with things, it just led her to where she was supposed to be. I'm not crying, you're crying. So, was this a good sequel to Finding Nemo? Yeah, it was absolutely good. In fact, it was a great way to continue the story. Not quite as good as the first, but you know what? That's okay. I don't think they meant for it to be like a super better film than the original one, just to have it be a good follow-up. There's a lot of action, a lot of hilarity, a lot of creativity, and just a little touch of that Pixar hits you right here in the tingly feels atmosphere. Pixar did not let me down, and I am so happy. However, I also have one thing I have to ask. Are you guys by chance familiar with Joe Raft, who was one of Pixar's most beloved employees and directors who passed away in 2005? Well, if you don't already know, he tragically passed away because he was a passenger in a car that crashed and flipped over into a river from a cliff. Did anyone notice that that's a lot like the end of this film when that truck flipped over and crashed into the ocean from a cliff? Yeah. Why has no one addressed this? I don't know. Kind of awkward though. So that's my review of Finding Dory. Now, of course, my question this time around, as always, is what did you guys think of the film? Go ahead and leave your comments below. Be sure to like and share. And if you like what you saw here, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And as always, please be sure to keep checking back for more Adorkable videos coming out real soon. Bye, Adorka Betties! Bye!